Bill O'Reilly spoke about Muslim terrorism yesterday in the wake of the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attack, and he's going to go after Howard Dean here for some comments that he made. Let's watch.
But it isn't the few. The jihadists have strongholds in at least a dozen countries. They've killed thousands of American military people, tens of thousands of civilians. They're occupying thousands of miles of territory in the Middle East. And ISIS fanatics are beheading civilians on camera and kidnapping people all over the place. President Obama should know the word few is absolutely erroneous. These people are waging a world war, and it will be a never-ending war unless the entire world comes together to defeat the Islamic Jihad. But many people will not even admit this is about fringe Islam.
You know, this is a chronic problem. I stopped calling these people Muslim terrorists. They're about as Muslim as I am. I mean, they have no respect for anybody else's life. That's not what the Quran says. And you know, Europe has an enormous radical problem, and an enormous. I think ISIS is a cult, not an Islamic cult. I think it's a cult.
That's just dumb. Dumb. ISIS recruits fanatical Muslims. That's who they recruit. They don't go after flower children from San Francisco. They're not the Moonies. Howard Dean does not know what he is talking about. He is in a state of denial.
He's in a state of denial. Of course they're Muslim. They said Allahu Akbar. They said they're Muslim. They said we have avenged the Prophet. If somebody tells you that they're something, and then they go and do an attack for that something, who are you to say that that's not the case? It's just dumb. You're in a state of denial.
Now on Sunday, the New York Times headlined, "As horrors emerged, Norway charges Christian extremist." A number of other news organizations like the LA Times and Reuters also played up the Christian angle. But Breivik is not a Christian. That's impossible. No one believing in Jesus commits mass murder. The man might have called himself a Christian on the net, but he is certainly not of that faith.
Oops. Bill, videotape exists. It's 2015 now. That situation, exactly the same. Anders Breivik had online manifestos where he referred to himself as a Christian terrorist or a Christian extremist. So in one case, it doesn't matter that they said that they're Christian. Of course they're not Christian, because Christians would never do that by definition. What about Muslims? I mean, look, it's obviously a Muslim. They say they're Muslims. Well, yeah, the guy called himself a Christian, but he's not a Christian. You are a hypocrite, but it shows you his bias. See, his bias is, if it's anybody who ever does anything wrong in my group, whether it's white people, whether it's Christians, rich people, what does he do? You have to defend them because, of course, they meant well, because I know the people in my tribe, in my clan, in my group, they always mean well. By definition, my people mean well because they're like me. Of course they mean well. But those other people, you know, those dark-skinned people, whether it's black people, whether it's Muslims, liberals, well, they always, I mean, come on. We can assign, nefariousness to their entire group because that's how they are. They're not like us. They're different. They're the other. So of course, acting bad is just what they do. Whereas my side, we always act good. Their side always acts bad. Look, this is exactly what people mean when they talk about Islamophobia and when they talk about white privilege. So how would this work on race issues? On race issues, just take the example of Sarah Palin. So Sarah Palin, her daughter gets knocked up when she's really young, has a kid, and they trot out the baby daddy at the Republican events. And they hold these people up as like a wholesome American family, right? Baby out of wedlock! But they hold them up, oh, great traditional American family. Why? Because they're white and they're Republican. But imagine if it was President Obama and he had a daughter who was knocked up at a very young age, and you had the baby's father come out to all the Democratic events. They'd be like, oh, look at, they're promoting the disillusion of the American family, and you know how they are with their culture, and they're all loose, and they don't understand traditional moral values. I mean, Levi Johnston, who knocked up Bristol Palin, had stuff on his Facebook or his MySpace page that said, I'm just a fucking redneck who wants to drink beer and do that. Imagine if it was, somebody who knocked up one of Obama's daughters saying, yeah, I'm just a thug, a gangsta, I like to chill out on the block. America would lose it, but they don't lose it when it's Levi Johnston. That's the idea of white privilege. If it's in our group, in our clan, well, what do you mean? It's fine. Of course they mean well, and of course they are good people. They're white, and they're Christian, and they're Republican. Hello? But if they're black people? No. That's representative of the entire black community. It's the culture. So with one group, it's the culture, and somehow they're all guilty. With the other group, it's just a lone, weird situation, but they're good people anyway. Same thing with Muslims versus Christians. If it's a Christian terrorist and he says I'm a Christian terrorist, no, you can't be a Christian terrorist because Christians by definition don't do that. So if it's a Christian, it's always a lone wolf. It's always somebody who's just not doing it right. But if it's a Muslim, well, that's just part and parcel of the ideology. I mean, of course that's how it works. That's how they are. It's innate in them. They're just violent. That's how it is. That's what the religion asks for and teaches. Please, man, such a fucking hypocrite. His bias oozes from the TV screen. It's so apparent. It's so in your face. Here's the reality, man. There are good people and there are bad people in all different races, religions, and creeds and philosophies. Yes, it is true that statistically speaking, sometimes some groups are worse on certain issues than other groups. But that's neither here nor there because either way, you can't paint with an entire broad brush. And you can't say that we are the good people by definition. And if one of us does something wrong, it doesn't count because then they're just not one of us. You can't do that with one group and not do it with the other. You have to be objective in your criteria and objective with your standards, or else you're just a biased idiot flip-flopping all over the place and making decisions based off of your emotions and not based off of the empirical data.